All right, so the frightening thing, right? Um, and again, right, we're talking about society, we're talking about, agreements that we've made. Well, for example, today, and possibly in the future, if you're watching this and this is a recorded video from 2025, it won't be the same case, right? But I voted, right, today. And, right, my vote, I trust, right, is counted, and my voice that I have put into my ballot, should count and possibly help to elect somebody to a position somewhere, right? That we are saying with our voices and with our votes, we are agreeing to give these people a certain amount of power. We're agreeing to allow people to spend certain amounts of money. And, right, a lot has been made in the last, 10 years about whether or not elections are valid, whether or not elections are good, how we can trust whether or not elections are real, how do we know elections aren't rigged, right? And certainly, I do not wish to put any sort of cast any sort of doubt into the electoral system, right? I think this is where the danger, right, of somebody like a Genet shows up, but also a practical fear that somebody like Genet is proposing to us shows up. This practical fear, this practical concern that what I believe is happening in electoral offices, what I believe is happening in the, seat of government, what I believe is happening, in places where people have gotten their hands on power, is what I think it is, right? That they're, we talk all the time, right, in TV shows, in movies, in books, about these shadowy organizations that are undermining the government, right? And that, you can't believe anything because, the people you think are in charge aren't really in charge. It's actually these other people who are in charge, and they, are ruling things, via, pulling the levers of power, and actually they're the ones telling, our president and our Congress people what to do, and, it's all a masterful game of puppetry. Jean Genet is going to present this, right, in his balcony, and do it in a fairly ingenious way, right, putting everything into the hands of, a woman who is running a brothel, right? She ultimately gets to have, right, a kind of power that a lot of people might believe is supposed to be elsewhere, right? And so for us, right, go back to the vote that I talked about, right? This idea of what power is and what power isn't, where power rests, where power does not rest, and what we believe about power, Genet wants us to think about it. Now, does he necessarily want us to distrust the leaders that we've got? Let's not go there, right? I think it's a complicated question, right? Genet himself was an outsider who did not believe in a lot of what authority had to say, right? What we read in Esslin is that, Genet is arrested very early for a crime that he claims he does not commit. He ends up spending some time in prison, because of this crime that he claims he did not commit, that he was arrested for and punished for anyway, and made somewhat of a decision to take on that life of crime. If people were going to label him, he was going to do his best to wear that label proudly, right? If you think I am an outlaw, then I will become one, right? And then it will be true for me, right? I will no longer be accused of something that I am not guilty of. Now I will be guilty of it. Now I will bear full responsibility for it, right? In a strange way, it is existentialism, right? That he believes that he is being labeled incorrectly, and so he simply changes himself in order to, right, understand that, he is now not necessarily fitting the label, but that he has taken control over the label, right? He has decided, I will make myself into a label, and I will do it of my own free will, right? Is this the same thing as, for example, somebody who is afraid of a situation simply saying, well, I'm going to do it anyway, I'm going to be brave, and that way I will act brave, and then I will do a brave thing, and then that will make me a brave person, right? And I will then, it won't be a lie, right? I will actually have done the thing. Genet, when he presents this idea of power, when he presents this idea of what it means to believe in a power structure, what it means to adhere to a power structure, what it means to play along with a power structure, I think that this is, for us, a really interesting question as people who are looking into the absurd and into the existential. Again, when we think about what power is, and we realize that we do not have it, or that we only believe that we know what it is, can we take steps to become powerful? Can we take steps to become those who decide where power comes from or what power is believed in, right? Is wielding power the same as believing in it? If you wield actual power, but people don't believe that you wield it, is their disbelief enough to remove you, right, from authority? I think this is a tacit agreement that we make every time we meet in class, every time you watch these videos, right? You have invested in me a certain amount of trust, and I know what I'm talking about, right? And wouldn't this be a great idea for me to do, a great time for me to say, I fooled y'all, I don't know anything about this, I've made up everything I know, right? But, right, isn't there always a little bit of worry, right? That the authority figures that we have in front of us they don't really do the thing. They don't really know the things that they're talking about. They don't really have the experience to do it, right? It's an experience that I think you will all run into as you get older, right? I can't tell you how many times a week I think to myself, I am, 44 years old, and I certainly thought I would feel more like an adult than I do, right? I act like one, I pay bills like one, I have a job like one, I got a degree like one, but I certainly don't always feel like an adult. And sometimes I think to myself while I'm recording videos or while I'm teaching a class, right? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm up here doing this thing and people have simply agreed to it, right? And what if it's not all real, right? And you have to pretty quickly snap yourself out of it and say, but I'm here and I'm doing the thing, and I did do the studies and I did do the work, and I am full of life experience, right? Maybe I don't feel like an adult, but I am one. And so, my action, being an adult, is the thing that turns me into an adult, right? In a way, as an existential thought experiment, we simply have to say, right, that we've existed, and now this becomes our essence, right? We weren't, right, we weren't created to be a certain thing. We've taken on that role, and now that we have that role, we are that thing. And now that we, are that thing and doing it freely of our own free will for the most part, right? It gives us authority and gives us responsibility. So when we come back, I will talk a little bit more about what we are going to expect looking into and watching The Balcony, and then reading the play as well. What do we expect when we start doing this, right? What are we going to be hoping to find in Jean Genet's Balcony and in his thought process?